Right, we are at 10:31. Want to go ahead and respect everybody's time. I'm sorry that the doorbell keeps ringing. But we will go ahead and get started here. Might get in the chat maybe a thumbs up if everybody can hear me. And then also, thank you. Thank you for the thumbs up and we can hear you. If you get a chance, go ahead and just put your name and where you're from in the chat box. We'd love to see that. Love to know where you're from. So we are going to go ahead and, as I said, get started. My name is Marcy Zog, and I'm the Vice President of Community Impact here with United Way. We are very excited to have you all on here today talking to us and hearing more about our FY24 strategic investment process. I am joined by a couple of my colleagues here today, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Go ahead, Trisha.
Hi, everyone. My name is Trisha Pekarzik. I am the Data and Research Manager at United Way.
And I'm Kate Horberg, the Director of Education Innovation.
All right, so this is our team, and we have a couple of other people as well, but we are here to help you along the way. So we'll go ahead and take a look here, get started with our agenda. This meeting is really for us to share very important information and some of the updates for our FY24 strategic investment process. We want to make sure that those that are applying for this process have a successful experience and an experience that is easy and that you are able to get those applications into us. We also want to make sure that you all know and are aware that we're here to help along the way. So we're going to start off. I'm going to do an overview of our Rise United 2030 goals. I'll talk a little bit about our FY24 community impact plan. Kate will go over our grant overview, and then Trisha will talk a little bit about submitting your grant. We will have time for questions at the end. You can also drop questions in the chat. We'll be kind of keeping an eye on that. And if you do have questions that come up during this, we just ask that you please write those down for us and ask them toward the end. So with that, we'll move on to this next slide here. So at United Way, we are very focused on 3 areas. We're focused on education, income, and health. These are really the foundation for our work and for a healthy community. They are all very intertwined, and these are the areas that organizations can apply under. For education, we're really looking at students are prepared for success from birth on up through graduation and then to the next stage of their careers. Income, we're looking at financial stability and making sure that our community is financially stable. And in health, we want to make sure that our community members are leading long, productive lives. And you'll see over here, every Quad citizen, regardless of race or zip code, we want them to have that opportunity and access to develop their full potential. And that's what this is all about. So I talked a little bit about the Rise United 2030 goals. We have several goals underneath our Rise United plan, but we have 3 that are very key levers to our work and that we monitor very closely. In education, we want to increase to 90% the number of students that are reading on grade level by 3rd grade. We all know that this is a really important time because in 3rd grade, we go from learning how to read to using those reading skills to learn. And we know that students who read on grade level by 3rd grade are 5 times more likely to graduate from high school and be ready for that college or career. So this is a really important indicator, not only for our youth in our community, but for our community as a whole. Under income, We want to increase by 20% the number of Quad Cities young adults who earn a living wage. We know that if young adults receive a certification or graduate from college, trades, we know that they can earn between $18,000 and $36,000 a year more to help them be more financially stable for their future. We also know that that can have about $116 million impact on our community annually. And in health, we want to increase to 95% the number of Quad citizens who report having reliable access to health care. Being healthy, being able to have primary care, mental health care, these are all really things that are very important to making sure that people in our community live a quality life and that they have productive, happy lives. In addition to those three key levers, our Rise United 2030 really is looking at making transformational change, and we want to advance racial equity in those areas of education, income, and health, where organizations are able to apply through this process. You can see here under education, income, and health that there is a lot of room, a lot of potential for growth in our community and areas where we all can help. This takes me to our FY24 Community Impact Plan. This plan is what you will apply to, and on this plan, and we will send all of this information out. On this plan, it talks about our main focus areas of education, income, and health. And it also talks about our strategy areas, which are things like strong start, academic success, success after high school, things like health promotion, behavioral and mental health, and then stabilization services, basic needs, career pathways, and financial capacity. Or, I'm sorry, capability. These are all those areas that you're able to apply under. And then underneath of those are outcomes. And those outcomes are really helping us to get to our goals. And those would be the outcomes that you would apply to as well. And you would track and you would report back to us. And so wanting to share this with you, the purpose of this plan is that it does guide our investments, and it really helps to ensure that our strategies and outcomes are able to be reflective of the needs and the gaps in services in our community. It helps us to make sure that we are achieving our 2030 Rise United goals, and it helps to make sure that we're capable of making an impact on the overall health and well-being of our community. And all of our goals, our Rise United goals, our work with partners, our work in the community are all leading up to that overall health and well-being in our community and really making a difference there. This year, we took a look at our plan, and the most recent plan we had was FY24. And we did do a review of the current strategies and the outcomes, and we made a few changes. And we really had a particular interest while we were doing this in equity. And we did, as Kate will talk a little bit about, we did have a very diverse task force come together and look at actually the entire process for our investments, as well as our documents and our guiding philosophies, but also taking a look at this plan as well from an equity lens. We looked at it from relevancy. Is this plan still relevant, especially after all of the changes in our community and the changes that COVID-19 has made? So we looked at it from that angle. We also looked at past and potential future needs and funding. And so we took a look at what areas, what outcomes do we currently fund for FY23? And we looked at who applied and what areas and outcomes did they apply under in FY22. And then we looked at some key community indicators. We looked at our health assessments. We looked at other indicators under education, income, and health in our community. We took all of this into consideration as we looked at this plan and made a few adjustments to the plan. So I will say that the adjustments were somewhat minor, but the current plan to the FY24, which is actually the current plan now, I should probably change those headers. We had the 3 focus areas. We still have the three focus areas. We had 9 strategy areas, 3 under each of the education, income, and health focus areas. We did combine 2 of the health areas, so we now have 8. So we have 3 education, 3 income, and 2 health. And you'll see when you see the documents, when we get those out to you, you will be able to see really with health, by combining those, we didn't really take anything away. We feel that we really made that area stronger. And what we did is we looked at primary and clinical care, and we looked at health promotion, and really all of those things kind of align when you think about making sure that you're going to the doctor to get your regular checkups, when you're making sure that your mental health is that you're attending to your mental health and you have access to mental health care, when you're making sure that you are able to be active and those types of things. And so that's really what we combined together. We did go from 82 outcomes down to 65. Many of those changes that we made were outcomes that were duplicating each other. Things like we had outcomes like students graduate with a plan for college, but then we had things like students graduate and enter into college, career, trades, or a certificate. And really, truly, if you're entering into those, you had a plan and you have a plan. So we just combined things like that. And our results for making these changes is that we know that the outcomes are allowing for a more equitable process. We did change some of the verbiage in there to be more equitable. They are better aligned to make an impact in our community so that they are more direct. And they really help to strengthen that strategy area of health. So this is what it looks like. Under education, as I mentioned, we still have the strong start, academic success, and success after high school. You will see a few changes in some of the wording here. Under income, the stabilization basic needs, career pathways, and financial capability. Under health, this is where you see that change. Health promotion now is defined as empowering individuals and families to improve their health through those prevention services, increased access to healthcare, good nutrition, and physical activities. And that's the one that we combined into one. And then, of course, we have our behavioral and mental health. In terms of our overall process that we're going to get into in a little bit, I wanted to give you a preview of our timeline. So today, of course, we are bringing you together to talk about this, to share information. December 1st is when our application process actually opens. And that application process will take place in a program online called Community Force. It is a program that we have used in the past for our applications, but if you're new, it will be new to you. We do have guides. We have our staff here to help, and Tricia will talk a little bit more about that. That process of applications closes. So all applications are due on January 13th at 4:30 p.m. and no late applications will be taken. If you need to meet with us, if you want to talk to us, if you want to get to know more about our impact plan, we are here and you can reach out to us. We would suggest that you don't wait until the last minute so that if you do need to talk to us, you have ample time to complete your application. Then February through April is when the volunteer panels will come together. We'll have over probably 100 volunteers that are reviewing all of the applications. New this year, and Kate will talk more about this, we have implemented that during these meetings, and all these meetings are online, so they're all virtual. Agencies and organizations that have applied will be able to do presentations for about 10 to 15 minutes to talk about what you're doing, why it's important, and answer questions. Then our panel members will complete evaluations and they will make recommendations. Those recommendations will move forward to our board toward the end of May for final approval, and then agencies will be notified of the funding decisions in May. Now I'll turn it over to Kate, who will talk about the strategic investment grants.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be involved in the process this year. And as Marcy mentioned, we did work with a community task force looking at the equity of our process. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that and changes and recommendations that we've made to improve our process. So just to let you all know, this is a competitive process. We typically have about twice the amount of requests than dollars available. So do know that, and it is for a 1 year of funding this year with the potential for a second year. So I will talk a little bit more as well about the volunteers that will be evaluating and making recommendations for identifying funding or making recommendations for where the funding will be going. So I will get into a little bit more of that. But first, I just want to touch on, to apply, you must serve Rock Island or Scott County. And we've worked really hard to have more transparent resources available to you as you go through this process. So we're all here as a staff. If you have logistical questions on how to get that application submitted, we also have made a handbook, which is new, that will be available on our website soon when the application opens. And that's going to have not only policies and procedures, eligibility, things like that, but also the application and a step-by-step guide on how to complete your application, which Trisha is going to review with you here soon. And then additionally, it will have the evaluation guide that the volunteers will use as they review applications and make those funding recommendations. So as you complete your application, you can actually see how those applications are being reviewed to give you that extra resource. So do know we're here if you have any questions or needs, and we'll do our best to support you. And then finally, just keep in your mind as you complete those applications that we're really looking for those measurable results at the end of the day, long-term sustainable outcomes that achieve those positive results. So I just really wanted to highlight that. So to get a little bit more into the actual application, we've worked with this diverse group of community members that made up a task force. Between August and October, we reviewed the entire grant making process, investment cycle, and guiding documents from the philosophy to the application. And they made a number of recommendations on how we can make our process more equitable as we really think about how to support nonprofits and agencies that work with vulnerable and marginalized populations, which includes grassroots organizations, minority-led organizations, and social entrepreneurs. So we're thinking about all of that, as well as aligning this process with those RISE goals that Marcy discussed earlier. So to get a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of those changes, as you can see in the bullets here, the community needs, impact, results, cost-effective and efficient service provisions, and collaboration, they each have a percentage next to them. So this represents the different sections of the application, the narrative portion of the application. And you'll see these percentages and subheaders on the application now, as well as on that evaluation form that volunteers review. So there's a lot more transparency about how these evaluations are looking at and weighting the different aspects of the application to give you a better idea of what we're looking at and what we're really placing more or less focus on. So you'll notice this in the application and the handbook as you go through those materials. To tell you a little bit more about the volunteer evaluation process, one of the recommendations that our equity task force made was to incorporate some anti-bias and trauma-informed care information into the orientation. So as we get these volunteers together to have them begin reviewing your applications. They do go through an orientation that covers this whole process, as well as some of those newer pieces to give a little bit more context and training in those areas that we know are important to equity and supporting community work. And then after that orientation, there will be several meetings where you all will be given the opportunity, it's optional, to present 10 to 15 minutes virtually on your application, essentially. So what you're applying for, why it's important, why you should receive funding. It's an opportunity to, tell the story or give more context behind what you've included in your application. So this was by request from previous applicants and implementing partners. So we felt it was important to bring this opportunity back. So you all have that chance to tell a little bit more. There may also be questions asked and or sent to you after your presentation if there's not enough time for you to answer. So the panels of volunteers will look through all of your applications, consider those presentations, and then make recommendations on where the funding will go and who will be funded. And then those recommendations will go to our United Way board for final decisions. So who makes up these panels? As Marcy mentioned, we have 8 different strategy areas. So under education, we have 3 areas, under income, we have 3 areas, and under health, we have 2. So each of those areas will have its own panel of 10 to 12 volunteers. We'll look at applications dedicated to those areas. And those volunteers are made up of Quad citizens. So we put out a request for volunteers who are interested to participate, and we expanded our dissemination of that communication this year. So we're making sure to have a diverse and representative group of volunteers reviewing your applications. But they may be made up of CEOs, experts in our different strategy areas, employees in the community, donors, young adults or seniors. It's a wide variety, and we're excited to see who we have come together this year. And then finally, our eligibility has not changed from previous years, but as you go through the application, you will be guided through what the eligibility requirements are in a pre-screening process that Tricia will walk through with you here in a minute. So if you are a 501c3 or a 170 organization, for example, a 170 is a school, you will be then asked to select which amount of funding you're looking for, and based off of those 2 things, your organization, your funding request, then different questions will pop up for you to answer, and you'll be required to submit certain financial documents depending on what kind of organization and also what kind of funding you're asking for. So you'll be guided through all of that in the application, but everyone will be asked to share some kind of financial documentation, so know that. And those possible documents are the ones listed on the screen there. And that's kind of the nutshell of where we're at with the application and review process. So now I'm going to hand it over to Tricia to talk a little bit more about how to apply and the reporting.
Alrighty, so what can you expect from the FY24 strategic investment process? First of all, like Kate mentioned, this is a 1-year funding decision with the potential of a 2nd year. So if you had applied in the past, that would have been a 2-year cycle. So it's a little different this year. It's going to be a 1-year funding decision. We are also expecting that you submit quarterly reports in Clear Impact. So anyone that hasn't used the system before, we will provide training on how to submit this report and how to navigate the Clear Impact system. And I am also always available for questions when you have that award and you need to go in and complete those reports. I'm always available. We will also be expecting you to participate in quarterly convening opportunities. So this will be an opportunity for all of our funded partners to gather by strategy area, talk about what's been going well for you, talk about where there might be some opportunities to collaborate and do some collective impact work. We will also be discussing the summary of the quarterly reports in that meeting. So I will put together all of the quarterly reports that all of our partners submit, and we will review that in those meetings. And that meeting will also provide an opportunity to discuss some of the recommendations from our Impact Council, who really just monitors the progress that our agencies are making towards achieving their goals. We are also expecting, or actually you can expect us to promote your organization, partnership, and program. So any of the information that you provide through your quarterly reports, we will be able to share that through some of our communications like emails and social media. And you will also be expected to provide agency speakers and success stories as requested. So we have really been ramping up the amount of stories that we share. That is to really illustrate the impact that all of our partners together are making to both our community and our donors. And now we are going to walk you through some of the resources that we're going to have available on our website. So Marcy, if you could take us to our website, that will be unitedwayqc.org. So this is our website, and if you hover over this for nonprofits at the top there, you will see the funding opportunities link. If you click on that and you scroll down right now, what you will see on this web page is just the quarterly outcome report information for our current funded partners. So right now, as an applicant, this will not apply to you. However, on December 1st, when the application goes live, you will be able to find the link to the application on this webpage, which is unitedwayqc.org/apply. And we will also be sending this link out in an email, so you all have it once the application goes live. Up at the top here, we will also be adding a couple of additional links underneath this for nonprofits and funding opportunities section. Just like we have the blue links over here, we will have an additional link here about our FY24 strategic investment process that will have links to the handbook that Kate was talking about. It'll have information about how to apply, how to use the community force system, basically anything you need to know about the process itself. And we will also have another link to our past investments where you will be able to get an idea of how we allocated funding in our last investment cycle. So now, Marcy, if we could pull up the grant application guide. This application guide will walk you through the application in Community Force. This application guide will also be available on our website. So if we scroll to the top here, we can see first here that the first section is how to access the application. It'll have this link here. This is the link to the application, which will also be on our website, as I mentioned. When you click on that link, you will be directed to the Community Force website, where a screen like this will pop up. You will have two boxes like this. The top one will be for the FY24 strategic investment process. That will be the application to the full application itself. Underneath that, you will find a pre-screening, just like you see here. And we really recommend that you complete this pre-screening. When you go through that, you will go through the questions, and it'll basically tell you if you're eligible for funding. So that's a really good way to know if you're eligible before you really start spending a lot of time on the full application. And you don't have to submit the pre-screening. You will have to submit the full application once you're done filling out all those questions. So as we go through here, the second step will give you all the directions for how to complete the pre-screening. There's also helpful hints throughout this document that gives you some tips and tricks on how to navigate the Community Force system. You will also see a lot of reminders to save and return to dashboard. So this is a button that will be available towards the bottom of your community impact or Community Force screen. So anytime you're inputting information, just make sure you hit save and return to dashboard so that way your work is saved. We do recommend that you complete all of the application questions in a Word document first, just to make sure that you don't lose any of the data that you're inputting into Community Force. So do keep that in mind as you're going through. And then if we keep going here, the next section will talk about how to complete the application itself. You'll start off by filling in some organizational information about your agency. And then all of these questions in blue are all of the questions that will pop up in your application. So first, organizational information. Then it's going to ask you for some fiscal information. And like it says here, this is a list of all questions it's possible to see, but you might not have to answer all of them. So these questions will appear and disappear in Community Force depending on what your previous answers were to some of the other questions. And then if we keep going here, this next section is the strategy application. So these questions in blue are all of the questions that you will have to answer for each strategy that you apply for. So like Marcy and Kate mentioned, this funding cycle, we have 8 strategies, and you can apply for one outcome under each of those 8 strategies. So there is a potential to apply for 8 possible total outcomes, and you will need to answer all of these questions for each of the strategies that you apply for. And these will pop up in the Community Force system. There's a question there that asks which strategies you're applying for. You will check mark those boxes, and then those sections will automatically appear for you, and you'll answer each of these questions for those strategies. So if you apply for more or underneath more than one strategy, you will still only submit one application. It's all in a single application. There will just be different sections that pop up depending on which strategies you select. And then as we keep going down here, we see our attachments that you might be required to submit, along with some of the financial requirements. Again, these will pop up depending on some of your previous answers. There is also a glitch in the system that I did want to make you all aware of. Sometimes as you're going through the application, you might have 2 sections appear on that main screen that ask you to submit attachments. We really recommend that you first answer all of the narrative questions, so those blue questions that we went through above, and answer all of those first, and then you should really only have one of those attachment sections popping up. So we really recommend that you wait until the end to submit your attachments. And then let's see, okay, so this final section, just how to submit the application. It'll ask you to do a final review and submit of your application. So you'll just want to go through all of that and make sure that everything is good to go. Important note here that once your application has been submitted, you will not be able to go back and make any changes to the application. So just make sure that you're doing that review thoroughly. If you do find something that there's something that you really need to change in that application, please email me as soon as you can so we can try to get that corrected. And then there's also some information at the bottom of this guide about what to expect after it's been submitted, including when you will be notified of the award status and when funding begins. And then Marcy's going to pull up our final slide that has all of our contact information. So if you all have any questions throughout this process, the Community Impact team is here to support you all through our strategic investment process.
Thank you, Trisha. So now I just kind of want to open it up here to questions. You should be able to unmute yourself if you would like to. You can drop questions in the chat. We are watching that chat. I have not seen any come in yet. I do apologize if I missed anybody, let me know. But also, I want to thank you for being here today, for just listening and considering submitting an application. I want to reiterate that our process is funding is never promised. It is an open process, and so everybody that applies does start from the same place, and they're all evaluated in the same way. So I'm starting to see some questions come in here. Great question. Will you be sharing these slides with the application in one sitting? We are going to do a follow-up email. You'll probably get that tomorrow. That email will include the handbook that Kate talked about that does have all the different resources in it. It's going to include the link to the application page on our website. It will include the application as well with all of the questions in there, the guides that Trisha just talked about. And then of course on our website, there's going to be more resources for you including we have recorded this session, so that will be back out there as well for you to take a look at. So you're going to get that email. And then so if you receive the invite email, you will receive the follow-up email as well. I'll be using the list of the people that are in the actual appointment. So that I think hopefully that answers that question. The slides, yes, the slides, we can make sure that those are available as well on the website. I think that the PowerPoint is a little bit large, but we'll make sure that we get that on there. And again, all the things that we talked about, and I think almost all of the things that are in this PowerPoint will be in the handbook as well. So there'll be a handful of different places you can get those. I do want you to know that we are here to answer questions. We're here, you know, should you want to sit down and talk about your program, your agency, what you do, and want to look at our community impact plan together. I see another question. Will the possible second year of funding be through another competitive process? So if we choose to do the second year of funding, there will not be a competitive process. It will be the same people that are receiving the funding this first year. We are looking at doing a community needs assessment overall in the community, just because we know that there's been so many changes and so many things affected by COVID-19. And so that is why we are looking at the possibility of moving this into 2 years. So it will be a little bit before we will know if we are going to do that, but you will definitely have ample time and information should we open up the process again for that competitive process if we decide to do the 1 year. Great question there. What direction do you have for an organization that serves smaller specific demographics in terms of competing for funding with an organization that serves larger or broader population? Is demonstrating impact sufficient over numbers served? That is a really great question. When I hear this, I think a little bit about things like mental health and other things like that. It's not always about the number served. It is about the impact that you are making. There are things that we fund that are they cost a lot more, or you might be working with a smaller demographic. It's, are you working with the demographic that we're focused on? Are you working on helping people that are vulnerable, that are you know, in those different marginalized populations as well? That's really what we're looking for. We're looking at, as Kate talked about, we're looking at the overall pieces, and I'll go back up to those really quickly here. We're looking at these overall community needs and impact. We're looking at results. We're looking at cost-effective and efficient service provisions. We're looking at collaboration. And of course, we have weighted all of these by the percentages you see. So these are things that we're really looking for, and we're looking at how you're making a difference. So hopefully that answers that question, and we can talk more about that offline, or if I didn't answer it, you can certainly add more into this chat here. Anything that anybody else would add to that? Okay. Oh, perfect, perfect. Thank you. That answers. Other questions that you may have? Okay. So hopefully I was peeking really quick. I don't think I missed anybody's questions. So if you do have questions yet, you can still pop those in there, but I'm gonna go back down to our information slide. Again, you're going to get the email as a follow-up. This is a open and competitive process. No funding is guaranteed. We are really, really excited to open this process up on December 1st, where you will be able to apply. And again, it closes on January 13th at 4:30. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us for questions. Please do not hesitate to check out our website for tools and for resources and anything else that you might need. So I thank you for being here today, and look forward to potentially seeing your applications come through. Thank you so much.